All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful and honestly most misunderstood tools in finance, the futures contract. Now, you might hear futures and think of something super complex, right? But what if I told you this entire massive global market, it's all built on an idea as simple as a handshake? Seriously, stick with me and we're going to break down exactly how that simple promise got turned into a financial powerhouse.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at that simple handshake deal. Then, we'll dive into the two huge problems that came with it. After that, we'll see the genius upgrade the market came up with, get into the nitty-gritty of how it all actually works, and finally, this is the cool part, we'll figure out why time itself has a price in this market. It's going to be great.
Okay, so to really get a handle on modern futures, we've got to rewind a bit. We're going back to its older, simpler cousin, the forward contract. Think of this as the origin story. It's the blueprint for everything that came later.
So what exactly is a forward contract? Well, at its core, it's just a private handshake deal. Let's say you have a farmer and a baker. They agree that in 3 months, the farmer will sell the baker 1,000 bushels of wheat. The key thing? They agree on the price today. And I mean, everything is customized just between them. The exact amount, the quality of the wheat, the delivery date, you name it. It's a completely bespoke, one-of-a-kind agreement.
And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the matter. Think of it like this. A forward contract is like getting a custom-tailored suit. It's made just for you, fits perfectly, right? But that also means you can't just give it to someone else. A futures contract, though, that's the off-the-rack suit. It comes in standard sizes, small, medium, large, so anyone could walk into the store and buy or sell one. And that one difference, well, it changes everything.
Okay, so this custom, super flexible handshake deal. It sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But here's the catch, and it's a big one. There are two massive, potentially catastrophic problems baked right into the way these things are designed.
And that gets you thinking, right? In a private deal that isn't going to be settled for months, what happens if the other guy just backs out? What if they just decide not to pay? And what about you? What if your plans change and you suddenly need to get out of the deal? What do you do then?
Well, those questions point to the two major flaws. The first one is called counterparty risk. And it's exactly what it sounds like, the risk that the other party just defaults on the deal. They don't deliver, they don't pay, and you're left holding the bag. The second one is liquidity risk. This one means you're completely stuck. Remember that custom-tailored suit? You can't just go and sell it to someone on the street. It was made for you. There's just no market for it.
So, the market had this giant puzzle on its hands. How do you keep the awesome benefit of locking in a price for the future, but get rid of those terrifying risks? The risk of someone bailing on you, and the risk of being stuck in a deal you can't get out of? The answer, it turns out, was a really clever upgrade.
And this evolution was frankly a 3-step masterpiece. It was so smart. First, you start with the basic idea of that forward contract. Then, step 2, you standardize everything. The amount, the quality, the date, all of it becomes non-negotiable, making every contract identical. And then the final, crucial step, you make everyone trade through a central marketplace, an exchange, that acts as the middleman. And boom, you've got yourself a modern futures contract.
All right, so now we know why futures came to be. But the big question is, how does this new setup actually get rid of those risks we talked about? The risk of default and being stuck. So, let's pop the hood and see what really makes this whole thing work.
See, the genius here is how all these pieces fit together. They work like a system. First, standardization means everyone's trading the exact same thing, which creates a huge liquid market. Second, the exchange acts as a middleman and guarantees every single trade, so you literally don't have to know or care who's on the other side of your deal. Then there's margin. That's the skin in the game. It makes sure everyone can cover their bets, which basically kills counterparty risk. And finally, everything is settled up every single day, so losses can never spiral out of control. It's a really, really well-designed system.
Let's make this real for a second. What does standardize actually mean? Well, if you're trading a stock future for, say, ITC, these rules aren't just suggestions, they're set in stone. You have to trade in a specific block of shares, that's the lot size. The contract will expire on the last Thursday of the month, no exceptions. It's this absolute, total uniformity that allows millions of people to trade without even thinking about it. That's what creates a liquid market.
Okay, let's talk about margin. This is that brilliant solution to the what if the other guy bails problem. Now, it's super important to get this. Margin is not a down payment. It's not like buying a house. Think of it more like a security deposit. Both the buyer and the seller have to put up a little bit of cash with the exchange. It's a good faith deposit that guarantees you can cover any losses for the day. It's what stops people from just walking away from the deal.
All right, for our last section, we're going to get into something I find fascinating. If you ever look at futures prices, you'll notice something weird. A contract for something 3 months from now is almost always more expensive than a contract for next month. Why is that? It's almost like time itself has a price tag. So what's going on there?
Well, this question gets right to the core of what a futures price actually is. And let me tell you what it's not. It is not some wild guess about where the price is going to be in the future. It's not a prediction. It's a very precise calculation. And it all comes down to one concept, something called the cost of carry.
So the cost of carry, it's just a fancy name for all the real-world costs you'd have to pay if you bought something today and held on to it, carried it, until some future date. So the futures price, it's just today's price plus all of those costs. That's it. So what are these costs? Well, it basically boils down to two main things. First, there's the cost of money itself, right? To buy something today, you need cash, and that cash isn't free. You're either paying interest on a loan to get it, or you're losing out on the interest you could have earned by putting that cash in a bank. That's a real cost. Second, there are holding costs. I mean, if you buy a ton of copper, you have to store it somewhere, right? That's warehouse fees. If you own stock, there might be depository charges. So the futures price is just today's price plus these very real, tangible expenses. And this brings us to the biggest takeaway of this whole thing. If futures price is not a prediction, it's not a crystal ball, it is a simple mathematical calculation. It is today's price, what we call the spot price, plus the very real, very tangible cost of waiting. That's all it is. It's the price of time put into a number. So that leaves us with a pretty powerful final thought. What made the futures contract so revolutionary is that it took something totally abstract, something you can't even see, the risk of a price changing in the future, and it turned it into a standardized product that anyone, anywhere can trade. It's a way of managing uncertainty. And that kind of makes you wonder, right? What other big abstract risks out there could we tackle if we just found a clever way to standardize them? Thanks so much for watching.